Have a buyer you need pre-approved? Well, the Brian Manning team is available 7 days a week from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And we can close as quickly as 10 days. Call me anytime, 303-500-3839.
Balance isn't about standing still. It's not about splitting time perfectly between work and life. That's a myth. Real balance is momentum. It's knowing when to lean in, when to step back, and how to stay in control when everything is moving fast. Brian Manning built his success by rejecting the outdated idea of balance and embracing something better, alignment. The ability to go all in on big goals without losing what matters most. This is Balance in Motion, a new way of thinking, a new way of living. Because the people who achieve the most aren't looking for balance. They're mastering the flow. Let's get into it.
Welcome back. It's our Balance in Motion podcast. Super excited to be here today because we have a guest, Jon Hatch. Jon's a longtime Boulder realtor, has been doing this since 2004, works at Compass, currently was at RE/MAX previously, has a Lifetime Achievement Hall of Fame honor, awards he's gotten through there, built a great successful business in Boulder. But I'm going to be honest with you, that's all amazing. And I love your awards, but we're not here to talk about awards today. What I want to know is really how you manage to fly fish the way you do, sea fish the way you do, travel, spend time with your family, still run a successful business. And I really think that a lot of people wonder when we look at this, just how the hell do you pull all that off? That's what I'm excited to talk about today. So Jon, welcome to the show. We're super happy you're here today.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. I appreciate you having me aboard. And yeah, I think it's a good question about how to keep the life-work balance thing kind of tuned in. And there's times of the year where work is way outweighing the fun and the play time. And then there's times when the playtime feels really good, like, oh, I got to get back to work. But, in 22 years now, I would say throughout the course of 12 months in a year, it's really pretty consistent as far as the, business coming and going, and it doesn't come automatically. It definitely comes through hard work and keeping in the flow, but it's, to be able to create a space where real estate is the important piece doesn't come without all the fun on the side. And it's always funny to hear. I do a lot of social networking stuff or, social media stuff. And it's always funny to hear agents or whoever out there say, do you ever work? You're always out on fish tour doing like 4 nights in a row in Las Vegas or you always have these big fish in your hands. Like, you ever work? And so I always go like, what's the impression I'm making? Is it really something that I need to tone down or keep it going? But I don't really care. Because I just do much social, I do, as much posting about the success of a closing or the challenge of a closing and how it was rewarding. I try to always have a little story and about, the client, keeping it confidential, of course, but the client and how fun it was to close. But this one had a couple of hiccups along the way and it was, kind of ugly, but we'd closed. And sometimes they're actually, not sometimes, but all the time, that challenge or those challenges come up, it's definitely so much more fun than if it was an easy, slam dunk kind of a transaction. I think it's not rocket science. Everybody would probably say the same thing when I go to Belize or I go to the Colorado River or I go to these concerts. I think I've seen like 220 fish shows in 35 years, right? So it's spread it out, but to be able to go do that stuff with friends and with Kristen, my wife, and that really sets up, again, not rocket science. Everybody probably says the same thing. It's just a matter of doing that thing that gets you away from the desk and away from inspections and sewer lines and things like that. To be able to get to a place where you can come home and have said, I reset, and it's not a lot of work. It's just, you got to go do it, right?
Yeah. I feel like a lot of us don't get that reset button often enough. People just kind of feel tense right now. Like more people need the reset button. Like America could be a happier place if everyone just took a moment to go, do what you're doing because people are tense and I just don't think a lot of people get that reset in their life, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a matter of, I think people can tend to complain about not getting that outlet.
Mhm.
And sometimes it's hard. I don't think you have to go spend a lot of money to go reset. And I don't know that I spend a lot of money, taking trips and whatnot. Sometimes it's just like going camping or going backpacking or doing a trail run. I'm looking out at my backyard, and there's times where I just walk around the backyard, and that doesn't cost anything but a, quick pair of sneaks, and we've got chickens back here, so they kind of give me a little meditation pause. And so I don't think you have to do the big stretch out with a big trip to Europe for 4 weeks, but just a way to step away and get your head straight, because especially this time of year, the proverbial poop hits the fan, and you got to,
Yep.
make sure it doesn't land on you. Or you're, yeah.
For sure. So before we even get, much farther or deeper into this stuff, can you just I'm always curious to know, like, tell me more about like where you're from, where you raised, did you go to school, like everything way before real estate, before you've seen 225 shows or even like maybe where it kind of blended into starting seeing shows like, yeah, tell me more about your past and everything before real estate.
Well, so yeah, I was born and raised in Maine, which is, some people don't know where that is, which is always funny, but that's New England. And was, you know, totally proud and excited and happy to call Maine my home state. And I was there through high school and went to college in the Pacific Northwest. And then didn't really jam with it up there, except for I met my wife, and she went to Boston College for graduate school. I went to College of the Atlantic, which is in Bar Harbor, Maine, which is, if you haven't heard of that, I'm not surprised, but that's way up in the upper coastal, or what we call down east part of Maine. My passion at the time was photojournalism, or actually,
Mm.
yeah, I mean, early it was photography, but I wound up being kind of like, I want to tell people stories. And so between the college piece, the educational piece, and then also the kind of like, I want to go work for newspapers. So I had to figure out a way that I could get there. And what were the ways to get there? Internships with newspapers and going out and finding my own stories, telling my own stories. And by the time I graduated, I was almost kind of not well on my way, but like, this is what I knew what I wanted to do. And Kristen and I got married in June of 25, and about 9 months later, a little newspaper in Boulder called the Boulder Planet was looking for a photographer, and my mother-in-law said, "They're looking for a photographer. Give them a call." And they said, "Actually, we filled the job yesterday," or something like that. And then and I was so close, I was like, yeah, because I really ultimately I wanted to work for the Boulder Daily Camera. That was my my thing, right? And 2-3 weeks later, I was in a photo lab because I was kind of juggling, working photojournalism and out telling stories, but also needed some income. So I was at a photo lab, and the guy, Jim Burris from the Boulder Planet, called and said, "We actually need you." So uh, there I was in Boulder working for this little Boulder Planet newspaper, which was a startup with Doug Green at, Natural Foods Media. And Doug had a great thing going for about 5 years. I was at the Planet, and I think about 5 years. And then the Daily Camera finally recruited me, and I was like, yeah. So that was about 4 or 5 years there too. So maybe 9 or 10 years in a photojournalism career. And it was sort of cut short by my interest in rehab, purchasing properties and finding homes that were, fix and flips, we call them, right?
Mhm.
And I dropped photojournalism, and newspapers were kind of going a little bit south anyway. And suddenly I'm like, I got to get my real estate license. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to go. And that was 2004 when my daughter was born. I was showing properties, and Kristen called and said, I'm at the hospital. I know it's a month early, but we're giving birth today. And I was like, wait, I gotta work. I gotta make money. I can't just, no. She was like, Hatch, get here now. So yeah, I did. And, but that was sort of when you look back at the history of your different things you do in life, and the landmarks are the things that you remember, like her being born was like a month early was a huge interruption in my startup, right? But so then since 2004, it's been real estate all the way.
This is amazing. Oh my gosh, there's so much good stuff to unpack here. So,
Yeah.
so Maine. So is that where the love for fish came from? You know, for me, I was just always thought like they were a Northeast band with Vermont. So,
Yeah.
you know, when I first started being really seeing more dead shows, there was always like this kind of like this, you know, Fish vibe was slowly coming in. You know, this is back in the '90s of people like, have you heard about this band Fish? You hear? And I didn't know you're from Maine. So is that where the is that where you first started seeing Fish was from being in the Northeast?
Yeah, exactly. I went to school in Plymouth, New Hampshire at a little boarding school
Mm.
called Holderness, where I have still a ton of friends. Uh, but one weekend, my roommate said, let's go see Fish.
Mhm.
And he'd seen him a few times, and we went to the Keene Colonial Theater in Keene, New Hampshire, and that was May 4th of 1990, and I never looked back.
Nice. That's
Yeah,
amazing. I love
yeah.
it.
Took a lot of
And you
time off
said
in the middle, but definitely, you could probably say that's been a pretty significant part of my life is traveling across the country to see that band and great friends along the way and a lot of friends here in Boulder. We always sort of make a pact that we're all going to do these shows together if we can. Yeah.
that's awesome. And then photojournalism, I didn't know that part. So I feel like this explains a lot about your social, kind of like you said before, of, you know, like I'm always posting pictures of fish and stuff. And every time I see the photos you post, I'm like, holy shit, they're just freaking beautiful. Why do my pictures look so bad all the time?
Thank you.
Um,
Yeah, no, you did
it's-
pretty good. You did good. Yeah.
I mean, so I just, so it all makes sense. So I am curious. And I think that in real estate, it's also, you're trying to evoke a lot of emotion as well.
Hmm.
Whether you're working with a buyer or a seller, where you're trying to get a home ready to evoke an emotion of a buyer that's going to walk in and want to buy it.
Yeah, yeah.
How do you feel like your artistic past and the journalism is like cross paths with real estate, and how do you find that they complement each other?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think you know, the piece for me that sort of tied the previous life and career to today's life and career is like the storytelling piece, right? Like
Mhm.
like packaging something that someone can believe in. If that doesn't sound too corny,
Mm.
packaging me as the the service provider, but also packaging and presenting this new listing up at Chautauqua. And like, how do I tell this? I don't need to tell the owner's story, but part of the owner's story is part of the story that the house tells, and trying to convey that without being too corny, right? But try to package, you know, the life of this property and the life of this property in this location on this lot on this block in Lower Chautauqua, for example. What are the things that sort of tell that home's story? And again, that goes hand in hand with the marketing and how do you present, visually that home in a way that's people will stick around on that website for a minute before they go to the next property. So that's a pretty
Yeah.
significant piece is hopefully trying to be, I mean, sometimes you can't really tell the story of a, one bedroom condo that's got
Right.
mold and asbestos and methamphetamine, you can't really, well, you could tell that story actually. That probably would be as interesting, but it might not sell the place. So, trying to create that piece for that package. And it's not
Mhm.
always easy, but it's really fun. It's what I do. It's what I was sort of, cut out to do was package. I know I keep using that word, but this thing that you're trying to make someone understand and see clearly and want to love it. They may get into the house at the end of the day and not like it, but at least you
Mhm.
got them in there, right? Someone somewhere
Yeah.
along the way said, your only job is to get warm bodies through your listing. And I thought that was I still use that sometimes today, but it's not like a meat packing plant. You're just trying to get someone to get into the, into the property. And if they love it, they love it. I'm not trying to misrepresent by telling the story, embellishing it or, misleading them with imagery
Mhm.
or whatever, but tried to do the best I can to get people into the property. And for buyers, it's the same thing. It's like, presenting my knowledge of that particular neighborhood or that particular area of town what are the schools like? What are the amenities? Is it walkable? All these things that they may not understand. If I can bring my experience to that, and again, use the word package, um, and it may not be a property that's worth packaging, so to speak, because there may be problems with it. If it's got a toxic waste site, or if it's got high tension wires, or if it's got a sex offender in the neighborhood. Some of these things you just have to understand, come to the surface, and I may not know all of that stuff, but it may come to light. But one way or another, we have to figure out, is this property right for that buyer? And again, it's doing some homework in the beginning, up front, and then doing some homework, during a tour, and trying to figure out what are we getting into here. And it's not always easy to figure that stuff out. Maybe that doesn't happen until transactionally, but it's definitely, trying to make someone comfortable purchasing something. That's what sales is, right? And if you can put that thing together for them so they can understand it's a cool investment, then I've hopefully done my job. And also,
Yeah.
like, all this stuff, having fun is the coolest part too. So while you're looking at sewer lines and crawl spaces, and doing a listing presentation with a person you can never see yourself working with, try to still have fun with it. The challenges that we face every day are like moving this car out of the ditch today to get to a listing assignment for the for the photo assignment. Wasn't a real estate challenge, but it was definitely a challenge. But things come up, and like I said, if you can create a way that the challenge is something you can approach and manage, managing expectations for buyers and sellers also is a huge piece, so that when those challenges came up, they're sort of like, yeah, you mentioned that. Yeah, I'm glad you did, because now I've had a little bit of chance to process it. And look, here it is facing us in the eye, and we got to figure out how to move through this challenge. But I work with a lot of good realtors in Boulder, and a lot of them just have as much fun as I do. And I think part of that's conveyed from their fun in life to the, real estate table. And I think it's just so, life's too short. I think it's, if you're not having fun, you got to figure out the task to make it fun. Otherwise, it's not going to, the longevity of your career isn't going to work,
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you an investor that does fix and flips, or are you a realtor that has clients that do fix and flips? Well, I can help you make a cash offer, and we can close as quickly as 7 days. To learn more about our private hard money lending, call me anytime, 7 days a week, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. at 303-500-3839. I want to pull back to something you said before, just about storytelling and your brand. I think that, all of us are really representing a brand that we're trying to create for ourselves. Doesn't really matter what industry that we're in, but, it seems like over time, somehow figuring out how to associate storytelling with your brand of Hatch has really worked out well for you. You got any pointers? I think a lot of us struggle with trying to figure out, like, well, how do we weave storytelling, into our marketing, into our brand? You look at a lot of social media out there, and it sucks. It's boring. It's not that exciting, and then there's some that stand out where the stories are being told and it's intriguing and it evokes emotion and it's fun to look at. So any suggestions on how you really get better at weaving storytelling into, your brand of who you are?
Yeah, well, here's a great example. At this property up in Chautauqua, part of the load bearing, what's the term, shouldering the weight for your clients is with these guys that have lived in this home for 20 years. They have a lot of stuff, and we needed to get a lot of it out, almost all of it, for get set for staging. And then when you see a home with a piano that's 30 or whatever years old, you're like, oh God, the piano. Who's going to find it? Because if you look on Facebook Marketplace right now, I can guarantee you'll find 20 free pianos that no one's taking and no one's buying for sure. And these guys had this piano that was a Baldwin that was 20 or 30 years old, and I posted it on Marketplace, and lots of hits. No one wanted to come get it, but this guy connected and said, I want to come buy this for $100. I said, it's free. And I said, no, you free. And he's like, no, I want to come buy it. It's the one I've been looking for. And he came, and we had moved the piano from the piano room to the garage so we can get it out relatively quickly, right? And he was the sweetest guy. He came down from Fort Collins, and he came into the garage, and my sellers came out. They're like 80 years old, and they came out to the garage, and he was like, "Hi, Paul. Hi, Carol. This is great. Can we, thanks for doing this. I just want to make sure to ask you, is it okay that I'm taking your piano away?" Cutest guy. I mean, these people that come out of Facebook Marketplace are like incredibly interesting, weird. But he was the sweetest guy. He said, "I just thank you so much. I just want to make sure you're okay if I take this away today." And they were like, "Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah." Well, they looked at me, they're like, "Hatch, is that okay?" I was like, "Yeah, that's why we're here." And then he played, and then he played it for them. He's like, "I want to give you one last song." And he played the piano. It wasn't like, so to get back to your question, it wasn't like, you can't make that stuff up. And as long as I was there and I'm aware that that's happening, I'm like, I didn't even know if it was going to be a moment or not, but it turned out to be a moment. And it was a really cool piece to share, like the storytelling piece about being there with my iPhone and capturing him playing the piano, and they're in the background clapping after he's done. And I did a quick little pan to show the front of the house, right, with the garage. So telling, that home story in kind of a back end kind of way. And,
Yeah.
and it was really like meaningful to have these people like say goodbye to the piano, and he packaged it up real good and sent it off, drove it off to Fort Collins. So it's like I think like you could say like the quiet between the notes. And if you can hear those notes or feel them, that's the ticket. That's
Damn.
the ticket. Yeah. So
That's
while we're
amazing.
doing all this stuff running around, like we got to get this couch here, we got to get this thing here, we got to get the piano over there, we got to get the staging ordered, we got to get the the photography. It's the little things in there that sellers will say or buyers will say, or little moments like that. I was like, yes, that's so cool. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
And
That
then
that that
and
was
then
perfect
yeah, and
answer.
then like that's without saying I'm doing a lot of work.
Mm.
I'm doing a lot of work.
Yep.
And that was and having fun with it and doing things that create uh, a reminder of why I do this stuff. Yeah.
That's amazing. And was there ever a time in your career, you've been doing this a long time, where everything just clicked and you're like, "Holy shit, I can do this." It's hard in the beginning. It's a struggle.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're gambling on yourself. You left your photojournalism career. You're, essentially self-employed. You're married. Like, it's hard. Was there ever a moment where you're just like, "Okay, this is not going great, but I think I got this."
Well, all that except for I think I got this was right in '04, and everybody would say, like when I was in the mentorship program, I remember people would say like it's going to be 5 years before you really build your business to where you get it dialed and streamlined. And I was like, 5 years? That's like 2009. Okay, that's a long ways away. And we know what happened in 2008 and 2009. Just
Mhm,
as I felt like I was getting my legs underneath me, right, the financial crisis. And
mhm,
I was like, I had like a stated income loan, mortgage. I wasn't, the stated part was true, but the income wasn't. And I
mhm.
was like, what do I do? It was the same feeling I got in that first couple weeks of COVID, where I was like, what am I going to fall back on if this real estate, you know, blows up? So, but between 2004 and 2008, I felt like, things were going well. And I look back and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I survived. But then there was like, 2007, 8, 2010, 2011, before the market started to come back. And that was the only time where I ever really felt like, what are the things I need to do that that are different, that are better, that I can make this a career. So I did like
Mhm.
a reset and a check-in, and while doing that, the market, pretty much went off out of control through, I think 2019. There was a little bit of a slowdown, but then COVID hit, and we all made it through the slog. But man, it was, yeah. But anyway, I think the idea of those moments I look back on and I can almost not remember them. Trey has a lyric in a song called Wingsuit where he says, what's new is old, what's old is gone. Like the stuff that happened yesterday, yeah, check it out, but let it go. And what's happened today? What did you do today that was so great? Who cares? Let's see what tomorrow brings. And so I don't dwell on that stuff, but I also need to make sure that, the pipeline is full for tomorrow, Pretty awesome.
I love it. And then, and
Yeah.
I do want to ask, I know you're an avid fisherman. This is changing the topic a little bit, but
My favorite topic.
I just always want to, like, I grew up as a fisherman. Like, I just remember like fishing from the youngest age possible.
Yeah.
And just
Smart enough.
was diehard. Could never, never, never get enough fishing. Like I would skip school just to go fishing.
Yeah.
And
Me
I'm
too.
just curious to like, now what keeps you going for it? Like, what do you love about it? Is it the time with the friends? Is it the mental break? Is it the chase? Is it fly fishing's hard as shit. So is it, I don't know if you tie your own flies. Is it like a good cast on a windy day? Like where's the, you've been doing this for a long time too. So
Oh,
what
yeah.
keeps feeding that addiction?
Well, just being outdoors. I've got a dory style drift boat. So I don't do much wading. I don't tie flies because if I'm tying flies, I'd rather be in the boat. Even in the winter I'll fish, but no, I think it's being out with friends, and my son is probably a more ravenous angler than I am, and he likes to go solo. We go up to a lake and up in the hills here and catch big monster browns and rainbows and brook trout, and watching him like get after it, like, dude, what are you doing better than I'm doing? Come on, what are you doing? But when I'm with friends, it's just nice. We'll go to Creed in June every year. We'll do trips to the saltwater, every couple of years. It's just getting away and being out. And I love water. I grew up in Maine, right? So like you in Florida, like coming to Colorado was a little bit of a landlock. I felt, like, where's the water? But quickly picked up fly fishing and then got so into it. I was like, I want to get a boat, got a boat, and floating down a river in this state through the canyons, through the valleys. Oh man, there's nothing better. And if you can catch fish on the side, great. That's the goal. But the goal really is to just get out and have fun and watch my kid, whose grandfather, Kristen's dad, he was like my dad was. We fished a lot together, but her dad was just like that was the glue and our magnet, as they say. And to have all the boys fishing together and that we're still doing it. He's passed away now, but God, I can't tell you, Manning, how freaking fun it is to get out, to be able to go, like you do a lot of hiking and that's a little bit different with trail running too. But when you've got this thing in your hand and you're focused that hard on the water and you've got your bug or whatever you're fishing with, it's just weird. You've turned your conscious is like, it's just deleted. And you're sitting there in a boat for like from 8 in the morning until 5 or 6 o'clock at night. And you get off the water and you're like, there's something that just comes over you. And that's what I try to achieve. Exactly. Yeah.
Man, I spent so much time, my passion was flats fishing.
Oh
And
yeah.
what you're saying resonates with me. I could stand either on the polling platform or the bow of the boat
Yeah.
for hours staring
Yeah.
at the water, looking for a push, a tail, a redfish mudding, like, and something would just, a level of focus that I almost can't replicate in my daily
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
But there's something about it that you could just stare so intently and focus so hard, and it feels so good. Yeah, the only thing I ever equated to is like riding a motorcycle. I always love riding a motorcycle because you're just so in the moment. There's
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
things in life, and I love that you're sharing all this because it's all, my takeaway on this is when you find the passions that you love, whether it's music, fishing, whatever it is, that you just get that break that we all need really
Yeah.
badly. And it's just great
Yeah.
and refreshing to hear, kind of like the pursuit of the constant mental break while having a great successful career at the same time. It's
Yeah, it's a
awesome.
pretty good balance. Like I said, I don't know, maybe I told you, but it's not really unique, but I love to work hard, but I love to play harder.
Mhm. I
You
love
know?
it.
But
That's
it's like times at this time of year, a lot of the year actually, especially last year, but where where you just don't get to play as much, but when you do, you'd really make it work, make it worthwhile. And yeah, chasing fish, it's just such a cool, like I'm just like, and you're kind of in control, but you're also not in any control because you know, they're in control. They're the ones that are kind of pushing your buttons and
Mhm.
it equates to, career too a little bit with like, what are the techniques you're going to use today? What kind of room do I need to read today? What are the skill sets I have to make to catch this permit in Belize? What are the skill sets I have to deal with this particular crabby client or
Mhm.
this particular transaction? It's all the same, but fishing's better.
Quote of the day. We're gonna end it on that. It's all the
Yeah,
same, but fishing is better. There's
yeah.
nothing else. That's the mic drop. There's nothing else to say. That's amazing.
Well, Brian,
John.
thanks so much for bringing me
Oh
aboard,
man.
and
Well, I mean, it's all been amazing. Hatch, I just can't thank you enough for your time. And really, really, most importantly, thanks for your willingness to share and just tell your story. I've really have been looking forward to talk with you and learn about this stuff. So thank you so much for your time today.
thank you, and I'll look forward to my interviewing you next time.
Sounds good. All right, buddy.